we're recording.
All right, are we ready? All right, we'll call the meeting for the Traffic, Bicycle, and Ped Commission for Monday, September 16th, 2024. It is now 5:04 PM. Roll call. Chairman Dino and Vice Chairman Hutchke, right, is excused.
Correct.
Alder Stevens, I'm here. Stephen Larson.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, Patrick
Here.
Sorrell. And Dan Diener?
Teeters.
Here. Okay. Ready? If I need to slow down, let me know. Okay. On to approval of the agenda for Monday, September 16th, 2024. Make a motion. Have a motion.
All motion?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. On to approval of the minutes for Monday, August 19th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
All motion?
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. On to regular business. Consideration of possible action on the report by the police department on the monthly traffic enforcement unit traffic safety plan. We know that this was all in our packets. Any questions or comments? We know that
Pretty
the police
comprehensive.
department's not here. So
Yeah.
They got something going on Berry Street.
was it?
Yeah.
I'll take a motion to receive and place on file.
Make a motion to receive and place on
All
file.
right, do I have a second?
All second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. On to number 2. Initial request, consideration of possible action on request by Alder Galvin to remove the no parking 7 PM to 4 PM school days on the north side of Emily Street between Monroe Avenue and Quincy Street and replace with parking by permit only. Looks like this from the Green Bay Area Public School District. Alder? would you
Sure.
like to speak?
So, Old Leopold School, obviously it's an old school, going way back, to the turn of the century, before this one. It was a private school at the time. It was turned into a public school after it closed. I think it's K through 8 that attend there. One of my constituents is a teacher there, and he has been talking to me about the lack of parking they have there. With staff, current staff and visiting staff that come in and out to help out, they are forced to park on the lawns at the school or over on Grignan Street, which has a 4-hour limit parking. And then the teachers try and get out there before 4 hours is up and move their cars before they get a ticket. They don't always make it, or, that's just is what it is. So I looked at the 600 block, and that's the block between Monroe and Quincy Street of Emily. There's 2 homes there that have driveways that go onto Emily Street. And also I'd like to have us consider Eliza Street also, where there's 2 homes there that also have driveways that ingress and egress onto Eliza Street. The parking restriction was originally put in place from the 70s, when St. Vincent's and Bellin staff were literally parking up every side street from Grignan to Mason, from Madison Street all the way through to Clay Street. Now, since the ramp was built and some of the hospitals have bought satellite parking with bus service, the need to have those restrictions, I believe personally, have pretty much evaporated. And you can see that I brought a couple of times the committee here for areas within my district where the neighbors said, hey, we want to have parking again without having to have a restriction that it's only residents and this kind of stuff. So we've made some adjustments on various streets around that area. So when you look at it, in fact, I know one of the homes is empty right now on Emily. The other one, the people I know personally, they leave every winter and go down to wherever, where it's warm, and then they come back in spring. So what I'm looking for both streets is school staff only parking. And I think we could simply issue like the placards that we currently issue, like something like what the city issues, it's a bright color. You've got the owner's name and information, license, all that kind of stuff. Those are the only ones that can park there. And then it's only good during the school year. So that's what, 180 school days plus some staff training before and after. So maybe 200 days out of the year, which is, you know, still a majority. But I don't see, and I'll be waiting for Steve for his input, because I think he would be the most knowledgeable on why we couldn't entertain something like that to help out the staff at the school in their need here. You know, it's a good school. It's got a lot of kids in there. They've got a lot of teachers, a lot of staff. They got a lot going on, and I think it's an asset to our community. And if we could just make it a little bit easier for the teachers, I mean, especially the ones that got to park on Emily, they still got to walk, you know, a half block, 3/4 of a block to get into the school. I don't want it on Quincy Street because I believe that's where they have the bus drop-off pickup sites. So, you know, we wouldn't be impinging on that. But anyway, that's my deal.
Thank you. Director?
Although there is no legal basis to it, many residents do tend to think that the curb line in front of their residence is their parking. But what Alder Galvin is recommending, and I believe what you're looking at, is the north side of Emily and the south side of Eliza.
Yes.
Okay, both of those curb lines are directly abutting this school, so they wouldn't be adversely impacting any of the residential properties in the neighborhood. Parking by permit only, talking with staff, I don't think we'd need to issue the hang tags.
Okay.
Green Bay Area Public School District for their parking has a clear window sticker that
Okay.
fits in the driver's side. So
It's like a
working,
state
we've done that with the school districts for parking enforcement. Utilizing their sticker, I think the program would work just fine.
Okay.
We can work with that. The only other concern that I would have is those streets are amongst the oldest streets in the city. So they are relatively narrow, especially compared to a lot of other residential streets. So with bus traffic coming in on Eliza and exiting back out on the Emily, and with the parent, because that is a school of choice. So there are a lot of parental pickup and drop off. There is, compared to other schools of its type, you know, K-8 schools or especially K-5s, I do think Aldo has a significantly higher percentage, or significantly higher traffic volume per capita, per student. My only concern would be the sheer volume of traffic going around there and having the curb lines on both Eliza and Emily parked in. However, under the spirit of something we're going to be talking about under items 3 and 4, having that restrained, constrained cross-section, I think may actually help toward traffic calming and force drivers to be a little bit more conscientious and slow down because it is uncomfortably narrow. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, especially coming in off of Monroe. So staff would not be opposed to this. And to amend this to include both the north side of Emily and the south side of Eliza between Monroe and Quincy, to make sure that we have whatever ordinance modification necessary to allow it to be parking by permit only.
So how many parking spots are we talking about freeing up?
Between both sides, you're probably gonna get between 16, I think 16 is gonna be pushing it.
16 subcompacts.
No, you still got full city blocks. I'm thinking you might be able to get 8 per side. So that would provide an additional 16 parking stalls. Again, you gotta have setbacks from, if there are entrances into or out of the building at that, or the parking lot at that point. And we have to be cognizant of whether or not there are fire hydrants located along the block, and then take a look at intersection stop distance, sight triangles at the intersections of Quincy and Monroe, and we don't want to park right up against Monroe, because that would make it very difficult for somebody leaving there to get out onto Monroe, especially heading southbound, trying to look through that northbound traffic of parked cars, you know. So I think just a guess conservatively would probably get 8 on each block.
If I could add too, I live on Emily Street, and so there are no restrictions where I live on parking. So when we get like the Bell and Run, that's a real educational thing that leads me to believe that if we're only parking one side of the street and they're parked properly, that there shouldn't be any issues, but people will have to take their time ingressing, egressing onto the side streets and things like that. But I have seen fire equipment come down our street with both sides of the street parked up. So I'm not concerned about an issue like that. I've seen the garbage trucks come through, same size. So again, I'm not worried about that. And I think if the staff understands and it's clearly marked where they can and cannot park on those streets, again, all you're gonna have is traffic calming. You shouldn't have any incidents or issues like, people can't get into their homes or anything else like that.
Well, I would think 12 to 16 spots would be
That should,
significant relief for.
yeah, from what I'm hearing, that would be a blessing.
And do the people that kind of come and go, the staff, are they issued a sticker too?
Yes, anyone that works for them has this decal, isn't it the blue? Well, they issue something every year.
It's kind of like the school district logo.
Okay.
My wife's got one in our cars.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, just think of your state park sticker, same kind of deal.
Right.
Just stick it on the inside corner of your windshield, and it's about 2 by 3. And it clearly says Green Bay School District staff parking.
So
Yeah.
some staff that would only need to be in that school for 2 or 3 hours, then.
Most of the schools have dedicated stalls in their parking lot for traveling teachers.
Okay.
So the ones that would be taking advantage of that would mostly be the
The
full-time
full-time staff.
staff. And then the visitors, they come and go. And that's why they have to reserve them spots, because Aldo isn't the only school with parking issues.
I'm all for creating some space for the teachers to park, and I think it's kind of a travesty that we have to have our teachers run out at lunchtime
To move a
to
car.
go move a car and disrupt their very precious prep time as well as downtime in between when they have the kids. So I'm definitely okay with trying to find space for them to park. One thing that I do want to ask though, Steve, I don't remember who your guy was last month.
Tom Sherman.
Tom. Is Tom gonna continue to come?
Yes.
Okay. When we prepare staff reports, and again, this is just me thinking my staff role as well, I want to have a complete staff report, graphics help, to help visualize the situation. If we have a little bit of a concern with road width, just, stating road width so we know what we're dealing with, whether it's a 36, a 38, a 40 width, 40
This-
wide street.
This one I'm going to take the responsibility for. This was supposed to be a transition meeting. Tom is not in today.
Okay.
And I was in Atlanta all last week for a conference, so I was out of communication. So the lack of preparedness is definitely on me.
Yeah, like I said, I'm all for supporting finding parking for the teachers, but just to help us make a decision.
Absolutely.
And to be making a conscious, informed decision, those additional items would be appreciated.
Any other comments or questions? No, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, and I'm just gonna,
Yeah, we can take a peek at it on the map, that'd be good.
I was half tempted to bring it up over here, it's like, no, get it so it's full
That's-
I do like it that we're gonna use their permits, so there's no cost to the city.
okay. So
Yeah.
here is that 600 block of Emily. So we're talking about this, okay, so we got sidewalk there. And,
And then that goes down to Webster, yeah, that's the
yeah, it
playground
comes all the way
side.
down to Monroe.
Yeah.
So we got some pretty good availability there. And similarly on the Eliza, so we got the driveway, the exit driveway here. And then we're pretty well clear up till the corner.
So we're gonna lose some space on that street, but I think that's about 1 car, 1.5 cars, 2 cars maybe at the most.
Right.
Steve, are you guys gonna have to make like a custom sign or something?
No,
to
what
post
we would
it?
do is we would post it parking by permit only,
Okay,
and then we would work with the school district to use their permit.
okay.
So it's a standardized sign that we have that we use quite often throughout the city.
Okay.
Jim too.
Yeah, make a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the, what's our language here?
To
To approve what is recommended.
Approve what is recommended.
No,
Yeah. Sure, we'll make it simple.
You have to throw in amend it to include the 600 block, south side of the 600 block of the
Does
line.
it not have that in there?
Yeah, I
currently?
did not, that
Okay.
was
Right now,
my
it's
mistake.
Well,
north
yeah,
side of
then
the
we'll make a
line.
motion to amend the initial request to include the 600 block of, it was North Eliza?
the south side of Eliza
South
between
side of
Monroe and
Eliza.
Quincy.
And, yep, and Quincy to allow for staff parking for the school district.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Okay,
Thank you
so,
very much.
yep,
Appreciate
you're
it.
welcome, thank you, Alder.
We're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm getting there, sorry.
Well, it looks like you're clicking away, so I was waiting. All right, so item number 3 and 4 basically combined together, so I think we need to make a motion to suspend the rules to discuss and approve together. So, take a motion to suspend the rules.
I'll motion.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. All right, number 3 is consideration of possible action on the request by Alder Stevens to amend the existing policy to include traffic calming measures with all new and reconstructed streets. And number 4 is consideration of possible action on the request by Alder Stevens to amend the existing policy to allow traffic calming measures on collector streets within the city. I know we've been working on this for the last few months. Commission, any questions, comments?
Yeah, Steve, was this last month we'd gotten the red line version? Is this the red line version in the packet this time around? Because now I'm starting to lose track of.
There's been a couple of different ones.
No,
Right.
and I apologize, when I converted it to a PDF, it took the red lines out.
All the red lines out?
On-
Okay.
So what I'm going to see, seeing as nobody's joining us on Zoom, so beyond what you saw at last month's meeting, under step 3, data collection, we added, data will be collected through the use of traffic road tubes at a location determined by the traffic engineer. That was 2 separate comments that we received. One, to use the road tubes to collect the data, so we defined how we were collecting it, and the location to be selected by the traffic engineer. The only other comment that we had was under step 5, and we added, the city shall make every effort to collect the follow-up data to as close as possible to the location of the original data collected in SEP 3.
Okay.
So that makes sure we're putting the tubes back in the same spot.
Yep. And so with that language, I guess then the flip side of that would be if staff isn't able to place it in the same location, what would the preventative, or what would prevent that from happening?
Nothing should prevent it from happening. That is our current practice. It's, we may be within a reasonable margin of error, and reasonable margin of error plus or minus 10 feet. If we put the original road tubes at a mid-block in front of house number 341, we're still gonna be mid-block in front of 341, but if somebody's parked in when we go to put the tubes out, we have to move it to the front or back of the vehicle that's parked there, but it'll still be in front of that same house. The idea is not to introduce bias by putting it closer or further away from the intersection or something like that where the data could potentially be skewed.
Okay. Yeah, if we want to do a plus or minus 10 feet, I think we should call out the plus or minus 10 feet. Just the way that it's written is a little bit ambiguous still. I think just nailing it down to, if we can get it plus or minus 10 feet of the original location, I think if that's staff's current practice, I think that would be great.
Okay?
I also have some communication from Garrett Bader.
Okay?
Garrett had some language and some recommendations that he wanted to, at a minimum, be presented tonight, and potentially included. On page 4, actually, you know what? I shouldn't speak for Garrett. I guess we should just submit this as a
Yes, please.
communication to staff.
Right,
Yeah, I don't want to speak for him
Page 4,
since they're not my words.
What's highlighted, like he had on page 12, for step 7, this is a whole new section.
Yeah, in reviewing Garrett's language, though, I don't think it's a bad idea what he's suggesting. But certainly, Steve, I think we want your thoughts on what he's suggesting here as well.
Well, and we'll take this under advisement, but I can tell you just at first blush, the comments relative to page 4 are largely clarifying. There's really not a whole lot of meat there. And what he's proposing under proactive design traffic calming, that's not traffic calming. That's design.
Yeah, that's road design. Yeah.
So it wouldn't be applicable under traffic calming policy. It would be applicable under a new subdivision if the developer wishes to see those types of activities proactively put it. That's part of his initial design.
Yeah, and because I know every community is a little bit different. So
Sure.
for the city's process, though, if Garrett or somebody else came in with a proposed subdivision and they wanted to talk about a roadway design that is not the quote unquote City of Green Bay
Standard?
typical standard,
Sure.
how would staff go through that process? Is that just a meet with the developer, discuss
Exactly.
design,
Yes.
discuss cost? Okay.
So that step there that he's suggesting is basically item number 3. Traffic measures with all new and reconstructed streets.
So
Which is a policy.
Yeah, so do we refer this back to the staff then? for
Yes.
comment? Okay.
Yes.
And just another big umbrella, maybe Alder, you can speak to this, but Is there a concern that this raises the cost of road development in the city?
It will, unquestionably. Now, on a new subdivision street, we have what we refer to as option 1, option 2, option 3 for subdivisions, and they are in no way intuitive. Okay, I'm gonna tell you that right up front. So we'll try to make sure we don't lose you along the way. But option 1 is the traditional subdivision development that occurred through the 1980s. Under option 1, developer brings in a plat. Once that plat is recorded, he hands it off to the city. The city assigns it to staff, and staff designs the roads, the sanitary, storm, and water infrastructure underneath there, determines what, depending on the lot density and the zoning ordinance, whether sidewalks are required at that time or not, they'll design the sidewalks. We will let a contract, we will build it, and then we'll turn around and levy assessments against the abutting properties that benefit from that improvement. The local vehicle registration fee, or wheel tax, does not apply to what we call a type A street, which is a brand new street through a farm field. The reason for that is, but for that subdivision, there's no need for that street. So the first time it gets built, it gets assessed yet. After that, the assessments are covered by the local vehicle registration fee because it's reconstruction, it's maintenance, it's upkeep, it's ongoing. So that was what the Common Council adopted back in 2018 when we brought the wheel tax through. Option 3 is the most popular, and that is a developer build. So the developer comes in, meets with the city, says, I've got a subdivision out here, I would like to exercise development option 3. They engage a consultant, they do the plat, they design all the infrastructure, we review and approve that infrastructure plan. They let the contract, they build it, we inspect. After it's fully constructed and everything is ready to go, the final bills have been paid, the developer submits a request to dedicate public improvements to the city. That request to dedicate goes through the Improvement Service Committee and then through the Common Council. In that case, the developer pays the actual cost of construction and then hands that over to the city instead of paying an assessment. Why would somebody want to do that? Historically, up until the last 10 years or so, they oftentimes could do it cheaper than we could because many developers had relationships with contractors. Matter of fact, many development LLCs contained construction contractors as part of the LLC. So they were able to do work at a lesser profit because they knew they were going to be making something on the sale of the lots down the line as well. That the cost savings isn't as great as it used to be. The primary benefit for exercising option 3 is timing. If the developer is constructing the work, they don't have to follow public bidding statutes. Our bidding statutes increase the timeline substantially because we have things that statutorily we have to meet. They don't, so they can go a lot quicker than we can. So it's still a very popular option. Option 2 is the hybrid. The developer designs, records a plat, and designs the infrastructure. Hands over their design to us, we bid it, we build it. They still get assessed, but again, timing, they may be able to get a consultant designing faster than we can get the design done in-house. So, long background story to set the table as to what ultimately comes down. On a new street, a type A street, that cost is assessed back to the developer anyway. So the initial construction cost, if higher, implementing some of these traffic calming type measures, is still going to be borne originally by the developer. On a reconstruct or a resurfacing, there may be a higher cost to the city, but that would be the same as if we were to install traffic calming on an existing street. the next time you go to do something out there, it's gonna cost you a little bit more because you have these things to deal with. So it's really not that big of an impact to the city because we're already talking about traffic calming, reactive traffic calming on existing streets. And if they design some of these facilities in from the get-go, when we reconstruct, we're in the same boat. The initial cost of construction, which arguably is gonna be higher, is borne by the developer anyway. So there might be some additional cost to the city, but I don't anticipate it to be appreciable, at least not appreciable enough to make a change in our decision, not by any stretch.
Yeah, not to beat a dead horse, but a lot of times you guys will try and time your reconstruction projects or other improvements with other utility projects.
Correct.
Where equipment and things are already mobilized, you guys can kind of save costs that way. But really the higher cost is when you guys don't have those other projects planned or scheduled. And then if one of these would pop up and it would need to be implemented outside of one of those windows, that's where we're talking like increased cost. So, but on the flip side, there are also programs and opportunities for grants and federal and state dollars to do these types of projects, so.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? So we'll refer back to staff to get clarification on that.
Yeah, I think that would be the appropriate thing to do, since we can't speak for Garrett himself.
Right.
And I wish he would come to a meeting if he wants to.
That's fine. We talk to Garrett on a very frequent basis anyway, so to bring this up while we're talking is not a big deal.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I appreciate adding that stuff from last meeting, Steve. That was.
The only other thing that I'm still wondering about is we'd indicated you may have some ideas on the scoring. And I've not received any comments relative to the scoring yet.
Yep, so the only thing that I had seen within the original packet was just that, let's see, what was it? I think it was just that question about the percent of vehicles 5 miles per hour over, and then in the actual text, we had the 7 mile per hour limit, which I don't know that we ever reached a consensus with the commission members on if we wanted to keep it at 7 miles per hour or if we wanted to reduce it down to 5. So I think that's still up in the air as well with
Yes.
commission members. So, but I know you made that text change, so.
And again, what we're looking, I understand why there might be a desire to lower the threshold for this purpose. Again, what I'm concerned to have some inconsistency between an enforceable limit versus a non-enforceable or informative limit. If there's no reason, if traffic, if the general public typically feels comfortable at 7 over because they're not going to be enforced against. I don't know that a traffic calming measure is necessarily going to change that habit.
I'll disagree with you, Steve. I certainly agree that from an enforcement standpoint, right, you don't want to create inconsistencies. But you can help prevent yourself from getting to an enforcement standpoint through a design that reduces people's tendency to get to that point. So I think the request to reduce the number is an attempt to try and preempt those enforcement issues because, well, they already exist, right?
Sure.
So if we already have speeding and stuff, we're already at this point. But for like situations, new roads even, preemptively, why don't we design traffic calming into it so that we don't have an enforcement issue? So I guess that's kind of my thought process behind this. I certainly, I understand staff's concern too by it lowering the threshold and then potentially creating more work, with more of these getting to the point where they would qualify for a calming project. But again, we heard last month from all of the commissioners and from the public as well that speeding has been an issue in this city for decades.
Absolutely.
And I just personally driving around for 20 years in this city, a lot of our roads are overbuilt. And they are really, neighborhood streets were built way too wide back in the day. And frankly, they could use calming, or when they are reconstructed, they could be reduced in size dramatically. So, just my 2 cents on that. But certainly, I'm just one of the commissioners. I don't want to speak for the whole group, and that certainly would be up to us to vote on. So.
I think the goal is to try to get more traffic calming on our streets. And reducing it to 5 may help in that, even though 5's not a really fond number. So it'd be up to this commission to make a decision. Do we want to change course or keep it at 7?
Right. I mean, I can make the recommendation to staff that we reduce it to 5, and ultimately that will be part of our vote. But again, we're not going to be voting on it tonight if we're referring these comments back to staff anyway, so it's just food for thought at this point.
So if we were to reduce it to 5, and we started to realize we have an overabundance of streets that are now qualifying, would we have a future discussion about that?
You always could revisit the policy, we're revisiting it right now.
Yeah. But I'd say right now it's like 0. A year from now, we have 100 streets that now qualify. Well, the city's not gonna be like, oh, we can't pay for all of this. So that'd be a time where I think we need to come back to commission and say, what you guys decided previously has now gave us a ton of work that we can't afford.
That's a bridge we'll cross when we get to it. That's not playing into my decision.
Right.
Again, most of the data out there that we've seen supports 7 because of the regulatory nature of it. So being data-driven and us trying to find data-driven solutions, that's what we went with. If the commission wants to go to 5 to make more opportunity for that's not a hill we're gonna bury our boots on. That these are your decisions. We're here to help you out with that.
I'd be
Yeah.
okay with that.
Yeah, I think hearing staff's supportive of that, if we go that direction, I think we make the
Okay, so
recommendation. to reduce it to
we'll
5.
make that change to 5 over instead of 7 over as well.
Yep. And I don't know that we'll get 100 applications.
But you never know.
Right.
Just throwing a number out there.
And the common council will look at you. Steve, and go, what did you do?
You all want some more traffic.
Right.
Yeah, right.
This is what you want.
Yeah, but I mean, I've had this discussion in more than just this place, in this city. And, it's a bigger discussion than even just the traffic calming policy that we're looking at, right? So Steve talked kind of all the way through that whole process of development. And, from a staff perspective, if you want to really look at the holistic problem of speeding within a city, I mean, you go all the way back to the subdivision ordinance, because that's where you're starting to set up your right-of-way requirements, your street width requirements. That's where you can start making those regulatory changes that then impact the developer on what they have to construct, so.
Okay, so we're at, the recommendation is to change 15% of the vehicles 5 over.
Yes.
Are you okay with leaving 5% at 10 over, or did you want to lower that as well? It'd be on page 6. Speeding problem thresholds.
So
15% of the insured seven. Or, it's an or.
Right,
So-
or 5% of the vehicles traveling more than 10 over the posted limit.
I think it's okay if we just reduce the 15%
The 15
down
and
to
5
5.
over?
Yeah,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting more than 5% at 10 miles per hour over, yeah. You're gonna qualify. And it's gonna be really noticeable.
I'm sure we will be.
I mean, those are the instances where people are calling in,
Yes, I agree.
so.
Okay, so we'll take these comments under consideration and, again, what we tried to do with this document was make it not only a neighborhood traffic calming, but more of a citywide, identify what we're gonna do on a reactive basis and to encourage through proper design proactive, which I think goes to his, Garrett's second point here, and again, I will call and clarify him with that. I think there's a way to do that within the body of the document. Without a step 7.
Yeah, maybe Steve, maybe it's more of a discussion at the point at which, you guys, like you said, you're considering a development. And if you've got a developer that wants to incorporate those types of features, and you guys have a way to go off script from your normal roadway design, right? So if your requirement is a minimum 40-foot wide local street, do you have a mechanism built into your development agreement or your code requirements to allow them to reduce it down to a 34-foot, wide road or something less?
Right.
So, yeah, as long as that mechanism already exists.
And again, what
I
I'm
think-
thinking is on page 4, when we talk about what are traffic calming measures, there's 3 paragraphs there, and I think a 4th paragraph that states, during the development of new residential subdivisions, developers are encouraged to meet with staff to take a look at designing in, from the beginning, measures that will help keep traffic managed to reasonable speed levels, or something along that line. And that way, it takes what Garrett, I think what Garrett is suggesting here, gets it into the policy, but doesn't create a 7th step in the traffic calming, because, again, that 6-step process that we currently have is the reactive.
And I also think Garrett too, not speaking on his behalf, but I think he's kind of looking at if the department denies it, what would the next step be for a developer? To go to common council?
Yes,
for
they would always
override?
have that opportunity.
Yeah,
There's appeal processes.
yeah. Okay. I think he's looking for that too.
Right.
Any more comment?
Okay. I don't have any
So
more.
we're referring to staff
Referring back to
to
staff.
Hopefully next month.
return next month.
Yep.
One more time.
Someone like to make that a motion?
I'll make that a motion.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Needs? Ayes have it. Our next meeting is Monday, October 21st.
I'm sorry, I had a quick question. I noticed that last month, there was the public, the gentleman had read a letter to this body. And every other board and commission that I sit on, if an individual reads the letter, then they submit it to the body as for public record. And we didn't do that. And I'm wondering if that's normal procedure, because the gentleman read that letter in lightning speed.
Normal procedure would be to submit.
Yeah,
Yes.
wouldn't we retain that then?
We should, yes.
Okay.
The meeting was recorded, so do we have it?
We should.
I mean,
It's gonna be on the meeting for last month.
But I can
remember that.
guarantee you that was very difficult to understand
Even
how
re-
fast he was reading.
Even rewatching it, he had to like put it at .75 speed just to keep up with it. He was flying through that letter.
So in the future, we should then have that put into the record, right? A copy of that.
I don't want to pick on Mr. Thino, especially seeing as he's not here.
Absolutely.
But generally speaking, that would fall to the chair.
Okay.
However, with that in mind, any commissioner would definitely be within their right excuse me, we
If
need
the
you to
commissioner
submit that.
wasn't- If the commissioner wasn't muted
This is correct, yes.
at the time.
So hopefully we've got that rectified.
Okay.
And you got everybody's phone numbers?
I did.
Okay, great.
I did. I appreciated that. The question is always, what do you do once you find out? Right? What do we do once we find out there's a problem? Therefore, we got the phone numbers. My concern last week, or last month, was not that I disagreed with the vote. My concern was that, and I'll recommend it to our chair when I see him again, but that the public is reminded that when they come into the commission meeting, that it isn't our director's fault. Our director isn't at fault for everything that happens in the city. And I felt like Steve Grenier was attacked a bit. And I think that the public needs to be reminded that our staff does everything that they do and every day to make this city better. And we cannot, as a body, sit here and allow the public to attack our Director of Public Works.
Well,
So that's what I had the problem with when I was waving my hand in Zoom.
I 100% agree with you, and I think we all will. But that also falls on the chair to
Correct.
control
Absolutely.
the
But
crowd.
the chair needs to give a pleasant reminder that we're all here for the betterment of the city before we open it to the public, or shortly after. Because I felt like it was pretty, I wasn't here, but it felt icky.
And I appreciate the commission and the comments. I truly do. One of the things that I have had discussions with my staff about recently, we have been given a directive by administration, by the Common Council, to bring forward data-driven recommendations. Above and beyond that, at the end of July was my biennial licensure requirement. Unlike many other professions, as a registered professional engineer in the state of Wisconsin, you are required at a minimum every 2 years to have 2 credit hours, 2 professional development hours in ethics, engineering ethics. Part of our engineering code of ethics is that you shall not, it's not may, it's you shall not make recommendation that you do not feel has a chance of success or is not supported by good science. When I bring a recommendation forward to this commission, it's because it is supported by science and it's a data-driven decision. If it's something other than a data-driven decision, I will be very upfront with you and tell you that. I could quite literally be brought up on charges by another engineer in front of the engineering licensing board and stand a chance of losing my license if I do not follow my charge under the engineering code of ethics. So that's why we do this. Now, from a professional opinion, do I care one way or another if there's an unwarranted stop sign anywhere in the city of Green Bay? Is this the only one? God, no. That's one of the reasons I put the map up showing the plethora of stop signs in that neighborhood.
Right.
It is overblown with unnecessary, unwarranted stops. If that's the hill I wanted to die on, I would have been here recommending that this one go, and this one go, and this one, okay. From a data-driven perspective, it does not meet the warrants. I cannot ethically support the installation of that sign. I can't. If the commission decides to go a different direction and not follow the data, that's your prerogative. I can live with that. I can't make that call. I'm prohibited.
Right. At the end of the day, it's a stop sign,
Exactly.
right? But my point is that we need to remind public. The chair needs to remind the public. And that's really all we can expect, is that they remind the public to be cordial, and that, yeah, you don't intend to make them stop at every corner in the city.
Right.
So, that's just my point, and again, I can take it up with the chair. Yep, so.
Then before we move on for informational, I just wanted to share one thing with you all, because it's a project that you were involved with some time ago. This body made a recommendation that went forward to the Improvement Services Committee relative to a sidewalk project on the east side of the city along Manitowoc Road and Hemlock Drive to request a Transportation Alternatives Program grant it's through DOT, but it's federal money,
Tap grant.
to have that sidewalk project, and we did get that project award. Now, TAP projects can be funded as low as a 50-50 cost share and as high as an 80-20 federal to local match. Between the time we made the submittal and the time we were awarded the grant, prices went up a lot. So the grant we received was closer to a 55-45. Still a good deal for the city. It was over $1 million. A few months ago, we were told that there was money in the carbon reduction program, the CRP, that had not been spent for fiscal 24-25. So it was being redistributed to shovel-ready projects, and Brown County Plan Commission staff approached me and said, Steve, your sidewalk project would qualify for carbon reduction because you're promoting walking and bicycle over vehicular traffic. So we did submit an application, and we received an additional $304,000 in carbon reduction program funding to leverage against that Transportation Alternatives Program, and the sidewalk project is now being funded 80% federally, 20% locally.
So you got the full.
So we did wind up getting both grants. So I just wanted to pass along the good news that we got some additional money to you folks, to let you know that, you know, the work you're doing here is not meaningless. It makes real impacts on real lives, and we've got over a mile of sidewalk that's gonna go in next year to help support the safe walk and bike plan that you guys support. So
That's great.
real projects are coming out of this.
How many other projects were they able to fund with that? Because I know they look at all the projects that they've got.
We got a project, Howard, Village of Howard got a trail project out of it.
Okay.
Then there was some additional money in 25 or 26 that came up. There was about a little over $1,975,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. Brown County got that. They have 44 intersections, signalized intersections in the county that do not have,
Pedestrians, push button.
no, that are pre-timed. So they run on a certain time. They are not demand related, so they don't have optical sensors that sense the traffic. If that has a 45-second cycle, it has a 45-second cycle 24/7, 365. So they're looking to upgrade the controllers and the optical detection. they were able to get 10 intersections funded for what they had available, and they are applying for the remaining 34 in the statewide CRP redistribution. So they might be able to tap 2 different pots for that money as well.
That's good.
Very nice.
So oftentimes you folks make a decision on something and it goes off into the ether. We get it and you never hear the end story. So anytime we've got news to come back and share with you, we'd like to do that.
Good job.
Nice. Nice to hear.
Any other comments?
Nope, that's it.
Take a motion to adjourn.
All motion?
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nate, we're now adjourned. Thank you. Thank you for coming.